morning, everybody. Welcome to Ruby Lane Live. We are here in the Dolly Cam, live in a studio. We are here with a very talented artist who has over 30 years of dedication to her craft. She has an astonishing amount of talent and a major amount of success to her credit. We are here live with the UFDC souvenir artist, Helen Kish, in her doll making studio. What a treat. So I'm going to get this camera and we are going to bring it in live to Helen. Helen, good morning.
Good morning, Rachel.
Thank you for being here with us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
We have been very excited. We have a lot of people tuning in that are very excited to be here and see you. Helen, can you just tell us a little bit about where we are standing right now in this magnificent studio that we see behind you?
Well, this is my home studio, and this is where I do all of my work now. We have another location which is mainly for Thomas's photography and where I store stuff. So I do my work here. It's very small. It's part of our loft. Behind us is our living room loft situation. But I spend a lot of time here in front of the computer and in front of the sewing machine. And of course you can see I have my books and some of my favorite dolls. There's a Maggie Iacono there on the second shelf there. Oh, and this behind me here is my airbrushing table. So I've got my models back there and lots of tools.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have so much to talk about, but right off the bat, I'm seeing these wonderful anatomy figures, and you studied anatomy, which is one of the things that separates you from a lot of doll artists, is that you studied anatomy, which brings a lot of, you've brought into your dolls, into your craft.
I've tried to. Of course, you're always learning. As long as you're alive and working, you're always learning. So I do try to take time out, at least a couple of times a year, to just study anatomy.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
You started back in a time when a lot of people weren't necessarily doing dolls, and I remember I read something that at the age of 5 you were looking at your Ginny doll wondering, how is she jointed? How does she, what makes her the way she is? And it kind of sparked that little interest in you to start.
That's true.
And then you started at 7 making your own paper dolls, drawing your own paper dolls.
That's right. My sister and I both did our own paper dolls, and I had a whole family of them, and clothes. And
so much fun. So it's in your blood.
Yeah.
If you guys are just tuning in right now, we are here at the studio of Helen Kish. She is the souvenir artist for the UFDC convention. And Helen, when are you leaving for Orlando?
let's see, I think we're leaving on Tuesday, on the 1st.
So thank you so much for fitting us in. We're going to be leaving on Monday, so it's very exciting to be here. So let's look a little at what you have going on right now. Of course, we cannot see the souvenir that if you're going to be at UFDC, we will be receiving on the final night.
What we have here is one of the companion outfits to the souvenir doll, so you can kind of get an idea of how tall the souvenir doll is. And then these are the other two extra outfits that are available for her.
Wonderful.
And then, would you like to see the companion?
Yes, we would.
Okay. Well,
this is the first look, everybody. We have an exclusive at the companion.
Absolutely. So here she is.
Oh, she's darling. Look at her.
And she's resin, and she comes with her coat and her bonnet and a nightgown and a nightcap.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And how many is it limited to?
Thomas, do you remember? 300. We made 300 pieces of this.
300, wonderful.
Yes.
Well, thank you for showing us the companion. That's fabulous. So that is a little person that goes along with the larger doll that we are going to receive.
Exactly. I wanted to go along with the theme, Une journée de la poupée, which is all about a little girl taking care of her dolly. So
that's great. So we have little Rileys right here. I couldn't help but look at that.
Tiny Rileys. This is actually the first Tiny Riley, and this is Tiny Riley Blue. She came next, and then this past year we did Tiny Riley ABC. But this is our brand new one. This is Tiny Tulu, and she's a different sculpt. So we'll have her available at the convention as well.
So when we talk about sculpting, would you mind telling us, telling our viewers a little bit about what that process is like for you when you sculpt something, especially a new sculpt? That must be a little. Do you lay at night thinking of the sculpt and then you sculpt it the next day, or how does that work?
Very rarely do I think about it at night. But I start with, sometimes I'm just playing around. There's a piece over there, if you want to scan over there, this old man that I started out playing with simply because I bought a new type of clay and I was just experimenting with it. And so I started with this head and I came up with this old man head, and then pretty soon I had a bust, and I just kept going and kept going. I had no idea when I started that this was going to happen.
Wow, look at him.
Yeah. So that kind of thing can happen. Another way that things can happen is that I have a commission, and so I have more prescribed things that, you know, as to size, as to ethnicity, and that kind of thing. That, of course, is one of my Maggies.
She's wonderful.
She's sweet.
Speaking of commissions, you designed for companies like the Franklin Mint,
Yes.
A lot of major doll companies before you started Kish and Company.
Yes, that's true.
This guy is really wonderful. So you just started, and this is what came out of there. He's fabulous. We have a lot of people tuning in right now. If you guys are just tuning in, we are here live in the working studio of Helen Kish, and she is the souvenir artist for the upcoming convention. Helen, you have a lot going on, and I just wanted to show everyone you and Maggie must be very good friends.
We are very good friends. And Tony and Thomas, of course.
Just a wonderful group of people. We're looking forward to seeing all of them next week at the convention. So these are a couple of your dolls. This one looks like the one we might have actually put in the advertisement.
Oh.
She's fabulous. So can we look inside a couple of these drawers?
Ooh, let's see. I've got there's some secrets in there. So
Oh, okay.
So let me find the ones that don't have secrets.
If you guys have questions for Helen, please feel free to ask them. We have lots.
Forgot to mention that this is my little painting table, which I can move around to wherever I have the best light, so that I can work getting things painted. I have a twig here that needs painting, probably sometime today. Anyway, here's one of my drawers where I just throw in extra clothing and things that I've found.
And we love looking in drawers.
Yes. So I've got socks in here, I've got underwear, I've got some shoes. So that's one thing. I have another drawer here that's got furs for hair, and just all, they're a mess, actually.
Oh, but we love messes. Doll people, we understand.
I haven't done anything.
This is actually very organized compared to my doll shop.
Okay. Beads.
Wonderful.
All of my crochet needles are in this little thing. Laces. And let's see, what else can I show you? I also keep my jewelry things in here. So everything's really convenient for me.
So from the moment that UFDC asked you about doing the souvenir doll for this year to the moment that she was finished, you uncorked the bottle and you said, okay, go ahead and order them. How long was that?
Thomas, can you help me with that? I'd say it was 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big process.
It is a long process, indeed.
So in Montana last year, you retired Riley.
Yes.
What was that like for you?
It was sad. But there are so many Rileys out there. I think there probably are enough.
How many Rileys have you done?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
But Mini Riley is still in production.
Yes, Tiny Riley is still.
Tiny Riley.
Yes, Tiny Riley is still in production now. She's different in that she's all vinyl, the way Riley was when she first came out. We later changed Riley to an articulated body, but these are all vinyl.
These are all vinyl. So will these be in your booth at the UFDC convention?
I believe that these are sold out. I think we may have, I know these are sold out. I think we may have, oh, I think I did put one. I found one of her, so that we might have one.
There might be one.
And then this one, I think we have a couple of her. Yes, also we did one for UFDC this year, so they'll probably have a Tiny Riley in their booth.
Oh, wonderful. So you can get it from Helen's booth or UFDC's booth.
Right.
You mentioned something about an articulated body, and something we really wanted to touch on that is very exciting is the sculpt, the African American sculpt that you are doing for the regional next year.
That's right. Well, I can't show you anything about that particular
but we can
sculpt, which is finished. But this is the 12-inch articulated hard plastic body. I call these VBJDs, vinyl ball jointed dolls, because the head's vinyl, and then the body is very, you know, highly articulated. So this is the, if I can get her to stand up here by herself, she should. She's not going to. Anyway, this is the body she'll be on.
That's a wonderful size.
And yeah, she's 12 inches. And yeah, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah. It's going to be wonderful, and it's a must see. And if you got to, regionals actually are some of my favorites, my very favorites. They're just really fabulous. So I noticed that on a lot of your sculpts, you have very pronounced lips on your dolls. Is that your favorite feature?
No.
Good.
It's just something I do.
Let's take a look at this beauty.
I don't know. This is one of my older dolls that
can
the vinyl was made in Spain. Sure. I'm still working on her. I've finished her jacket. I'm hoping to bring her to the sales room. This is all just draped in there at the moment. So if I get her finished, she'll be there. But I have gone back into the past a little bit, which is something I don't generally like to do, and
let's see if we can
made some small editions of the vintage or classic Kish vinyl from that were made in Spain before we went to China for our production.
Look at that
and
face.
She is 16 inches.
That's a wonderful size. She is just stunning.
Thank you.
Your faces are unmistakable. When you see a Kish doll, you know it's a Kish doll, which is a wonderful thing. Do you have, and I asked you before we started the interview if we could see some of your earlier examples, and you don't really have very many of those.
No, and some of that is on purpose, and other ones that I would have liked to have had, I just thought, oh, I'll make myself one later. Right. And I never got around to it.
And it's very, very, very typical with almost every artist I've ever spoken to. They do not save a lot of their work. They sell it, and they think, well, you work with it so much that you think, well, I will make one later, and then you do not. Look at this sculpt we are looking at right here. Is that still wet clay?
No, I don't. Well, I do work with wet clay, but that's that is not. That is called monster clay.
Okay.
That is what I'm using. That's what the clay that I was describing. I got started with the old man over
Old
there.
Man. Is that his name, Old Man?
No, his name is Keeper of the Crows.
Keeper of the Crows. He's fabulous.
Thank you. So, and this is also the same kind of clay. That's a very old sculpt that we've never even had molded, but I keep it around because it reminds me of my grandpa. And maybe one of these days we'll get a mold made of that. So
that's wonderful. So I read that when you were 20 years old, a newly married young woman, you were in the class and you read three paragraphs in one of your, was it a sculpting class that was enough to teach you how to actually make a doll, and you were off and running?
No, that never happened. No, what happened was my doll making was completely outside of my art school training, completely. But I did find a book in the library that helped me learn how to make molds. It was only about 3 pages, and so I was often running with the mold making because I knew I had to learn how to make molds in order to translate my sculpt into something I could cast porcelain into. And lots of adventures ensued after that, including mold cages breaking apart and plaster running down my utility sink and all over me. And
yeah, you must have had a lot of trial and error. Are there any kind of materials that you love the end product, but you don't necessarily like working with?
Well, plaster's one. It's very
difficult.
it's very drying to your skin. It's very difficult. As soon as I could hornswoggle my husband into learning how to make molds, I gave that up in a heartbeat. I did not like making molds, but I love all kinds of clays. I love working with earth clay and stoneware and the these kind of oil-based clays that I'm using for dolls or things that I'm going to take into production.
And the reason being is because you had former art training. What did you study as far as your former art training?
Well, it was in a commercial art school, but mainly what I studied was anatomy, life drawing. We had a sculpting class, and art history.
Somebody just wrote in and asked if you make one type of bear. You don't make any bears, just dolls, or have you made a bear?
I made early in my career. I made a bear with a porcelain face for my children for their Easter present, and I made a few of those for sale.
Okay, they did say the bear with the doll face. Okay, so a couple of those for sale. Yeah. Would you ever bring something like that back?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
It's a good question.
I did a soft dog to go along with some of my one of my dolls a few years ago, and I wasn't really that pleased with the production of it, so probably not.
It seems like it might be actually a hard thing to produce. And this is the cover.
That's the cover of the book. That was done, gosh, it's now, about 12 years ago? So it's not very up to date, but it's a beautiful book. I'm very, very proud of it. Louise Fetcher, the author, did a fantastic job.
That is wonderful. This book came out just about the time that you won the Jones Publishing Lifetime Achievement Award.
I think a few years before that. It was actually timed to come out. The last time we did the convention souvenir for UFDC, which was, I can't remember if it was 2005 or 2006. But it was in Dallas, that much I can tell you.
Oh yes, I remember Dallas, yes. And that was a wonderful.
And that's where they launched the book.
What was that like for you when they told you that you had won the Lifetime Achievement Award?
I thought, oh well, I didn't realize that I was that old. Is it over now? That was my reaction.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny. But what a remarkable award to receive. This little guy is just wonderful.
That's twig, and
so these twigs you do sell without being painted.
Do, yes.
And people can buy them and paint them themselves.
That's right.
Have you ever taught a class or thought about teaching just like a one-time real special Helen Kish painting class?
I've done painting?
Painting, yeah, painting the faces.
No, I've never taught that at all. I've taught sculpting little, mini classes at our own convention that we used to have, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So
you're very busy. So right over here that's some more of your clay treasures. We're just seeing treasures.
Right. Well, I was doing. Oh, look how dusty that is. I was doing cake toppers for a while.
Oh! So
this was going to be a cake topper. It was going to have a little person on top of it that never got produced. This is a medallion that I started to sculpt of my dad. And it's gotten a little bit roughed up. I started to sculpt that before he got sick, but that's of him in the Navy.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And let's see what. Oh, this is the monster clay that I was talking about. Let me just show this to people in case anybody's interested in it. There are a few little sculpts in there too, little skeletons.
So if you guys are tuning in right now, share our video. We are here live with Helen Kish, and she is giving us a wonderful behind-the-scenes peek at to what she does and how she does it. And right now we are looking at monster clay.
Monster clay. Yeah, you can find
They
it
must
on
call
the
it.
internet.
Is that a gremlin? That looks like a gremlin from the movie Gremlins. So
This could be. Could be. They have a wonderful website. So just look up Monster Clay. It'll take you right there. And if you're interested in getting some to play around with, or you can just look at what other artists have done with their clay.
So you grab a big glob of that, and then you just start working.
Yeah, just take a tool, and it's really it warms up with the heat of your hands, but it starts off pretty firm, and you want it to be firm so that you're not just losing the shape of something constantly. But
Tammy
anyway.
Matthews just wrote in and said, I had the pleasure of meeting Helen almost 20 years ago. I was only 25 and had a double bypass heart surgery. She was so gracious, and she gave me a set of 3 of her dolls.
Oh my goodness.
Her kindness changed my life.
Oh, how sweet.
So that's
Hi,
nice.
Tammy.
Hi, Tammy. You are here live with Helen once again.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that wonderful? That's one of the things that just is the most important things about dolls, is that dolls and friendship and kindness, the 3 of them go together, and I have never known them not to.
Yes.
What else do we have?
Well, these are some things I was going to call architectural fragments, but I haven't really gotten very far on them. I did one, which is up there, and they were all going to have wonderful quotes on them. That one says, lyric love, let's see, half angel and half bird, and all a wonder and a wild desire.
I love it.
Yeah. So, and then this one was going to have a quote from Mother Teresa on it.
Oh, Mother Teresa has the best quotes.
Oh yeah.
My favorite one is the one that says, "Do it anyway."
Yeah.
People are mean. Be nice anyway.
Right.
That's beautiful.
Right. So maybe one of these days I'll get around to finishing. I had like 4 of these all sketched out, and I've only actually got clays for the 2 that I've done, and they're different sizes, so that kind of disturbs me too. But anyway.
Those are fabulous. So you draw a lot of inspiration from architecture
Yes, I love architecture.
and traveling.
Yes.
Tomas just brought over another one over here. Let's see.
Oh, right.
That's wonderful.
We actually had little pins made of that too. That was another one of those trial and error things where I thought, well, this was the original sculpt, and I wanted to make a pin that I could give to my collectors, about 2 inches by 1.5 inches or something. So I started by just reducing and reducing and reducing. By the time I got to this size, there were no features left whatsoever. I ended up resculpting the whole thing in the right size. But I learned a lesson along the way.
Yeah, you learn a lot along the way.
Yes.
How many times have you redone a sculpt?
Before I showed it for the first time?
Before you decided that it was finished, done and redone as an artist so many times.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Countless times.
Countless times. Yeah, it's wonderful to get a peek into the actual production and what goes into your dolls, because we look at your dolls, we look at the faces, we are enchanted, we love them, they're so lifelike, but I didn't understand until I was here today and did a little bit of research just actually what goes into it. Mm-hmm. So it really helps collectors and the world appreciate not only the world of dolls, but the world of your dolls.
Thank you. And Thomas just reminded me that there was one time when I was working for, was it the Danbury Mint? They had commissioned me to do a portrait of Shirley Temple. They had the license. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I think it's Danbury Mint. They have the license to from Shirley Temple to do her likeness. And it was for something called the Rose Parade, and she was about 9 years old and in this image. And so I just did the head, started with the head, and would send that back to them in Connecticut or wherever they are. And there was a committee that looked at everything, and they all made changes, requests for changes. So I did number 2, sent it back. I did number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, 7, and 8. Oh, goodness. I'm being paid a flat fee and not a lot of money for this. Right. So by the time we get to number 2, I've pretty much, I'm at minimum, I'm at less than minimum wage. Right. By the time we get to the end, I'm making no money. I'm losing money. And what happened in the end is that they chose the very first head for production. Oh. Oh, no. Kind of soured me on working for anybody else. Yeah. Until the American Girl, people from the American Girl contacted me. That's not the right name. What's the name of that company? The Pleasant Company. Mm-hmm. They contacted me, and they were looking for an artist to do a special project, and I bid for that job hardcore. And I know a lot of other artists did too, and I was really very, very fortunate to get to work with them because they were fabulous. Isn't that wonderful? They were fabulous to work for. Yeah. And that had to have been a kind of a turning point in your career to be working for and with the Pleasant Company. Well, it was a big deal at the time. Mm-hmm. It really was. And I just wish that they had been able to go into retail mm-hmm. with the dolls because they were so beautifully produced. I found out at our retrospective in 2005 or 6 in Dallas that our factory that makes our dolls did the clothing. They didn't do the dolls, but they did the clothing for the Girls of Many Lands. And they are beautiful, and mm-hmm. they were beautifully boxed, and they each had their own story, a novel to go with their story. So I was just very happy all the way around. Right. The only thing I was unhappy about is that they didn't sell more because they ended up cutting the program after about 3 years. Mm-hmm. So, looping back around to that Shirley Temple story, I can see that I'm honestly thinking that Shirley Temple might be one of the hardest sculpts in the world to do because she was such an iconic character. Yes. Everyone knew just exactly what she looked like. How does one recreate that? Yes, it's tough to do a portrait of anyone, especially someone who's famous, because I remember back to when I was doing Vivian Lee. They sent me, and I think this was for the Franklin Minute, they sent me all kinds of tear sheets, and she looked different in every picture. Mm-hmm. She looked different from right profile to left profile. She was beautiful. I mean, it was hard to pin her down. Right. Have you ever received a commission request where you thought, you know what, I can't. That's going to be way too hard to pin down as an artist. It's not something I want to do. Well, I haven't done them in a long time, mm-hmm. Just because they are so very difficult to do. I just determined that no, it's really not worth it. Right. It is not. You create your own characters, and they are iconic in themselves, and everybody loves them. So there are several people tuning in that are also budding doll artists themselves, and you are always so gracious with your time and energy. What is something or a couple things that you would tell maybe your former future self? So if you were going to talk to Helen at age 19 and you were thinking, man, am I going to jump off this cliff? Is this what I'm going to do? What's a piece of advice you may have said to yourself, or that you could give somebody that's looking at you for inspiration? Okay. Well, the first thing I would say is don't do it unless you can't not do it. I love that. Because it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's really hard. And if you're going to do it, you better have some backup. You better have a nice man in your life or a nice woman in your life who's going to support you through the early years. Mm-hmm. If you're just doing it for the pleasure of doing it, go ahead, do it. But don't go into it thinking you're going to make money. Mm-hmm. Because that is a tough one, and it's getting tougher all the time as far as I can see.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's sound advice for anybody.
And for anybody in the arts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
I love that. Well, you are certainly a success, and we are looking forward to seeing so many wonderful things at UFDC. What's a couple of the things that we can look forward to at UFDC from you and in your booth?
Well, we're going to have a retrospective exhibit. It's going to be nothing like what we did before in Dallas. It's just going to be a small case, but it's going to have an overview of my dolls. Not anything from the really early period, like I said before, but mostly vinyl and hard plastic, a couple of porcelains. So
wonderful.
There'll be that, and our booth is going to have, because I really have had no time to work on new things this past year because of our family difficulties, we decided to go into our archives. And so we're going to have a lot of dolls on the tables and for sale that came from our archives.
Well, that's a wonderful opportunity, especially for a lot of your longtime fans and people that are tuning in right now. So that is very exciting. I'm going to turn this around and get next to Helen right here. Helen, thank you so much for having us. This was such a wonderful opportunity. Which booth are you going to be in? What's your booth number at UFDC? Do we know? That's okay.
We don't
That's
know.
all right. We'll find out.
I think we're going to be, as far as I can remember, right up front, but to the right, maybe.
Okay.
So shouldn't be too hard to find.
Wonderful. Well, we are going to link your information to this video.
Okay.
And we are going to see you in a couple days in Orlando. So thank you everyone for tuning in to Ruby Lane Live, and thank you Helen and Thomas for allowing us here to be here today. Such an opportunity and a wonderful peak. So thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.